Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone's in front of me, behind you. She's going to come round the corner in a second and say hello. I hope you're all happy and healthy doing the things that you love with those that you love to do them with. How are you feeling this morning, everybody? I mean, I don't know. Never a dull day in Tottenham for sure. That's the first truth of being a Tottenham fan. There's never a dull day. Second truth, second rule of being a Tottenham fan is always a good reason for a good old meltdown. I mean, look, entirely expected. The sort of the contention, I guess, shouldn't be whether or not Ange should have been sacked or could have been sacked, because I think that you could make the argument that either decision was reasonable and Daniel Levy was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Damned if he did, damned if he didn't, had to make a decision. We will chew ourselves, that sounded weird, we'll chew over the various sides of it in a minute. We've also got to talk about what's coming next. Last word on Spurs, had Lee McQueen on last night. He was saying that he knows a thing or two about a thing or two, or people that know a thing or two about a thing or two, making some crazy potential outcomes possible here by saying that Daniel Levy, A, wasn't responsible, it was other people, and that those people are actually taking over, Charrington, whoever, Vinny. There's massive changes, which is what I've been saying to you guys since the story broke around Donna Cullen. It smelt of something more than just a retirement. It stunk, if I'm entirely honest, of something, of a boardroom shake-up or a takeover. A Vinny nuke is what I think I called it as. And, a lot of people were saying there's nothing to see here, it's just people making up stuff. And look, maybe that will still turn out to be the case. And if that is the case, then where Daniel Levy deserves all of the criticism, all of the anguish and all of the ire and the fire of Tottenham fans, is because there was an unnecessary 2-week pause, the lack of clarification, the lack of amplification of exactly where everyone stands was and would be unacceptable. If there is something going on and that the timing of it happens to be just coincidentally inconvenient, but it still has magnitudes of influence in what the Tottenham makeup will look like for years to come, then it might not excuse the difficult period that we've just gone through of not knowing, following what should have been the best start to a window, following the best moment of our life, whether with Ange or without. Ange Postecoglou, for what it's worth, is somewhat largely like a secondary story here. There are actually potentially much bigger fish to fry with regards what we all want, which is consistent success, and what it takes to get consistent success, which is a level of ambition from the owners that is in line with those of people who are already getting that consistent success. And so, as I say, it won't excuse the delay, it won't necessarily justify it, but it might explain it somewhat. We're going to talk about all that, guys. This is a 3.5 minute intro. I forgot to say this. Can you please smash the like button for me? If you enjoy these conversations, hit the subscribe if you want to see Bugsy Malone more. Hit the notification bell and drop some comments. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. Right, so I'm not going to do transfer news, views and clues. There's some decent stories out there, but I'll do that in a second video from home later on, or a live stream or something, so you can look forward to it. This is obviously just an op-ed and like a kind of analysis, I guess, of how I'm seeing the situation. And I think that obviously you have to take the pulse of the fans at any particular point in time. Now, what I have been saying to you guys for the longest time is that, I hear from a lot of people, if only I was the chairman, or the fans, you should have a 51% ownership model, because the fans therefore can make sure that the board are doing what's in the fans' best interest and in Tottenham's best interest, and prioritise football over money, and yada yada yada. And all of that sounds great. It all sounds great. On principle, it all sounds great. In reality, it somewhat works in Germany, but if you ask half the teams in Germany, they hate it as much as other teams in the UK, for example, hate the fact that there seems to be a 2-tier level of rule enforcement at the top end of the footballing leagues and the footballing pyramid. So in reality, 51% ownership only works if everyone is doing it. And even in Germany, that's not the case. There's two teams that get away from the 51% ownership, Leverkusen being one. They're owned by Bayer, the pharmaceutical company that has basically built that city and has been there for decades. So it doesn't really kind of work, right? Unless everyone's doing it, and even then there's problems with it. But either way, the 51% model, well, look, what my point was is that you get to the point where you see moments like this where people don't know what they want. Tottenham fans do not know what they want. And I think that stuff was manifested in the build-up to, well, basically May 2025 and the first week of June. 5-week period for me should be used as a template, an exercise, a thought experiment forevermore at looking at the whims of emotional fans that will move goalposts and will change opinions as quickly as the wind changes direction and will lose their minds regardless of any outcome. I think that Daniel Levy was always going to be in a lose-lose situation here. 22 league defeats, right? Tottenham Hotspur were the only team to suffer 22 league defeats since the Premier League began and not be relegated. That can't be ignored. It can't be ignored. Tottenham lifted their first trophy of European stature in 40 years. That also can't be ignored. So you can understand that there is two schools of thought. One is very extreme this way, that's unacceptable. The other is that is unbelievable and unforgettable. And let's work with that. I think the reality is, though, that people were getting toxic with each other regarding Ange's situation, Ange in, Ange out. But I think we could all agree, in principle, right, that everyone that's Ange in, no matter how Ange in you were, there was a manager out there that everybody would get on board with, whether it's Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, Jesus Christ, right, Moses, whatever, right? If that could be, like, represented in a manager, there was a manager out there that everybody would go, yeah, thanks, Ange, but this guy's just too good to turn down. Similarly, everybody that's Ange out, like this guy, get this guy out of my club, anyone but him will do. Anyone, really? Anybody at all? Okay. I'm just picking names at random here, but I hope you take the point. I think even the strongest Ange outers would not, if the only option available to you was Sam Allardyce or Alan Kirbishley or, you know, whatever, right, insert, you know, manager that you don't want there, then I think everybody that's Ange out, they go, if that's all we've got, no, I'll stick with him. And so if you could all agree on that principle basis that there was a scenario where your mind could be changed, then you're not really talking about a black and white issue. It's a shade of grey. It's a subjective line in the sand around what change looks like. It just you need to find your own position on that spectrum, right? And so as a consequence of that, this furore around, I don't understand you fans, you're the problem, no, you're the problem. Unnecessary banter, unnecessary emotions at a time that I was entirely concerned that Daniel Levy was going to get caught up for the first time ever in emotions and reading the room. Because if you're reading the room in times like this, you're probably going to read it inaccurately. And then you see what happened yesterday. It took 2 weeks. He finally made his decision, or someone there finally made their decision. Lee McQueen from Last One on Spurs fame is saying, from what he knows, it wasn't Daniel Levy. That Donna Cullen also didn't retire, or it was kind of planned, but it's forced. Now it was forced, which is what I always said. It seemed the timing of it seemed suspicious. There must have been more to it. And now we're hearing that maybe Daniel Levy's gone as well. He's saying that there's nothing to do with Qatar. You know, we shall see. I don't know anything either way. We'll see, right? We'll see. But for sure, if there's truth to the idea that Daniel Levy might be getting sidestepped and there's a power struggle or just a repositioning that the Lewis daughter, Vivian, is coming in and saying, enough of Daniel Levy, let's get someone in that can get the job done. Well, Charrington, I mean, he's a finance guy as well. So if you think that your dreams have been met, wishes come true, dreams come true by Daniel Levy stepping down, doesn't necessitate that this guy will come in with a different level of ambition. And what's he there to do? Is he there to facilitate the trade, the transfer, the sale? Is he going to be coming in and Vivian Lewis is going to inject more money and take this on and go again? Who knows, right? But there's never any time to speculate. But where I find it mad and crazy, but entirely expected, is as soon as the decision was made, Levy Out starts trending on Twitter. All the people that were waiting, you know, patiently in the background or never really did stop, the saber rattling starts. You can hear the drums coming over the mountains, right, over the hills. And I'm kind of wondering how and why. Now, I've already said I know that Daniel Levy deserves criticism for sure, and a hell of a lot of it for the silence. And I say there's no excuse for it. Maybe there's an explanation if there really is a power struggle, and those things are fundamentally, I think, more important than, you know, a short-term transfer window that technically hasn't really even opened yet for us, and that whilst a lot of other teams look like they're doing a lot of business, there's nothing really massive in the way of confirmations or people holding up shirts yet. And we don't know if Thomas Frank's going to come in or otherwise. We haven't even spoken about Thomas Frank. That's the first time I've mentioned his name, and it's 10 minutes into the video. But what I find crazy is the fact that the Levy Out guys are saying it's an absolute disgrace, another failure. And explain to me how you're unhappy here, even though I totally get the frustrations at the delay. But in terms of the failure means we're reflecting on the project, right? We're reflecting on Ange. So I don't really get how people are unhappy, because if you're furious that he got sacked, then you were Ange in. And you're probably Ange in because you are valuing the trophy that was won 2 weeks ago. So if so, then the project wasn't a failure, it was incredibly successful, and Daniel Levy is going again into a new phase, or whatever, or whoever it is that's doing it, the ownership are going into a new direction with a new phase. But the project can't be called a failure if you got the trophy, which is why what the movement is built and fundamentally based on in the first place, for the most part. Maybe some people add a few other kind of variables in, but generally speaking, it's the lack of success. You had it. So I don't get that. So if the people that are Levy Out banging the drums today are doing it because Ange was sacked because they were Ange in, but they're calling the project a failure, then that doesn't make any sense. And if you were Ange out and you value the league position and you think that that's unacceptable, but you're grateful for the trophy, then you get what you want. So Daniel Levy's made a very difficult decision, of which he is going to, let's assume it's him, of which he is going to come out stinking either way. I've said it all for the last couple of weeks. I said it for the last couple of months, actually. It doesn't matter what happens. 99.9% of the outcomes here point to Levy being criticised by half the fan base. But I didn't really foresee how quickly that. I was like, no, that's going to play out as the season begins. Like, if Thomas Frank, assuming it's him, starts the season badly, first of all, I think some of the fan base are not going to give him a chance because they were attached to Ange. Fair enough. I mean, I think you should get behind every manager and give them a chance. Ange is gone, so it doesn't matter. But if it starts badly, it will be on Daniel Levy, because why did you sack our most successful manager in 40 years, right? If he's stuck with Ange and he started badly, then the people that are Ange out will be saying, Daniel Levy, you're a donut. You had the evidence, you saw it, right? 22 league losses, and you stood with this guy. He's not capable. You're a donut. So I kind of foresee a large, an entirely likely outcome where if the season starts badly with either Ange or anyone else, it was going to be curtains for Daniel Levy's PR campaign, his brownie points that he's winning. That was done. If the season started well, then all the people that were Ange in, if it was Ange that started the season well, would be doing the I told you so's to the Ange outers. It would have been pointing across the hockey saying, I was right, you were wrong, well done Ange. Daniel Levy doesn't get any credit. And if it was Thomas Frank or anyone else that starts the season well, then the Ange outers said, there you go, well done Thomas Frank. I told you, all those people that said that Thomas Frank is no good. Daniel Levy doesn't get any credit if we start the season well. Not vocalised credit. But if it starts terrible, he's in the mud. He's absolutely in the mud. But I didn't expect it to start day one. Because I don't understand. Like, if Ange, like, you can be Ange in and angry with Daniel Levy for sacking him, but you can't be calling the project a failure. You should be calling it a success that he shouldn't have ended. But the notion that project failed, therefore Levy out, that doesn't make any sense to me, because if you weren't happy with Ange, you should be happy he's gone, and if you were happy with Ange, then you should have thought it was a success. I don't understand this fan base. Explain the logic. Anyway, let's move on from that to Thomas Frank, right? So he's the next guy that's in all likelihood coming in. However, there's loads of reports out today that say Marco Silva is still. Reports from Portugal apparently are saying that it's becoming very close. And look, his odds have come in to 3-1, which is not, like, they're not long odds, by the way. They really are not long odds. So there's a good chance that there's some truth to that story. Thomas Frank is still, odds-on favourite. And apparently overnight there was some sort of breakthrough and they've now officially gone to Brentford. It's weird that you can get to a position where the manager is an odds-on favourite to the point where you put £3 on to win £1, very little reward for that risk, and then find out after the fact that that's because there's been meetings happening between Tottenham and Brentford that haven't been sanctioned and that Brentford are not, the club are not aware of, or that are not fully in support of yet, because they haven't had the conversation around compensation with Tottenham. Like, it's strange. And of course, again, at the same time, Brentford have put out that request for an assistant manager role, so I'm guessing they know what's going on. I just find the whole thing, the timing and the kind of chronological events and all that stuff, I find it very strange and just a weird way of conducting business. But I feel like you should get permission before you speak to the player, but you get the players anyway. So he's coming in, right? We got forever now to chew over. What does that look like for our transfer strategy? Apparently there's a player revolt where, like, Sonny now is pissed off, and he's going to say, you know what, there's no point in me being here for another project. I might as well go to Saudi, of which, by the way, I completely support. I think he's done all he can do at Tottenham. We're not going to win a trophy of that magnitude anytime now. It's far more likely that we won't win again during his playing career, and so on that basis, isn't it just a perfect time to say goodbye? It's perfect to sunset the story. The last time he kicked the ball for Tottenham was as captain in the Europa League final, lifting a trophy. Surely that is the perfect way for it to go, and then he can go off and make generational wealth for himself. Happy ending, happy ever after. Always live as a legend in the minds of Tottenham. But on top of that, you've got other people that apparently are furious. Even Brian Hill put out a tweet, I think, saying you're the most... the manager that's had the biggest effect on me. I'm paraphrasing, but I can't remember the specifics. But essentially, our time together was short, but you impacted me more than anyone else. I was like, how many minutes did Brian Hill play under Ange Postecoglou? I don't know, but I'm thinking, like, not many. So look, I mean, is that just something you say goodbye? I don't know. I mean, Brian Hill hasn't been in the club all season. Last year, I swear to God, I don't think he's even played for Tottenham as he was Ange Postecoglou's. Anyway, whatever. But so you now apparently have a player revolt, which was not something that we spoke about before, right? That what's the risk of continuity? What's the risk of change? If the risk of change equals player, like, uproar, then Daniel Levy has to think very, very careful about this. And if it is Thomas Frank, well, we shall see if it's worth the risk. But I tell you what, if you're saying that Daniel Levy, I've been saying it forever, doesn't take risks seriously, and again, this is presuming this is him, by the way. Like I said, he's got the wrong risk appetite to be a football manager. Well, in the last 6 months, I think he's gone the other way. It's like he's had a lobotomy. And for what it's worth, with regard sticking with Ange to the final, it paid off. Put all the eggs, everything, life savings on red. Spin the roulette wheel, and it landed on red. We got the trophy, we got back into the Champions League, we get the revenue. The sacrifice, some would say was worth it, others still say it was unnecessary and also not something that you can support going forward. But either way, Daniel Levy stuck with him when so many other chairmen wouldn't have done. Did he get any credit? No, but now he gets the criticism for doing a different version of abnormal, insane risk, which is to let go of Ange Postecoglou at the risk of, well, the headlines, right? The headlines. The Daily Mail. I'll see if I can find it and put it up. The Daily Mail, who have been calling for his sack, who have been chastising Ange Postecoglou all season. People in the interview, in the journalism room, asking him spicy questions, trying to get those clickbaits, trying to get those quotes, trying to get those little takes that are, that can write a nice story about Ange, and Ange was aware of it. Well, as soon as he's sacked, front page, it used to be about winning, or it used to be about success or trophies. Again, paraphrasing. I'll put it up on the screen so you can see it. Basically saying that Tottenham are outrageous to sack the guy who brought them success. Any opportunity for a meltdown. Good old-fashioned meltdown. Let's spin the story into create more carnage, because fans love the emotion of negativity. It's a human condition where, like, happy stories don't get spoken about like sad ones do. They don't. There's currency in the chaos. It's far easier to turn this into Tottenham have done it again in the wrong way. And maybe we have, maybe we haven't, right? We weren't going to win the Champions League, in my opinion, under Ange. Domestic cups, I think, are more difficult to win than that format of the Europa League, in my opinion. No, that's a debate, but in my opinion, I think it is. And so you're left with a fan base that's waking up this morning in meltdown at the owner, who has usually been criticised for not having enough risk. But the 2 times that he shows almost too much risk, the first one it pays off with the trophy. The second one, as I say, I believe that it would have been far easier for Daniel Levy to stay with Ange. Because at least if it didn't work out, he could say, what did you want me to do? He won us what you've all been craving for, right? Calling for. But he's decided to twist. I think, like I said before, right, there's a level in which everyone can get on board. If you bring me Pep, you bring me Jurgen Klopp, whatever, obviously not going to happen. But there's a level where everyone's like, okay, fine. But Thomas Frank? Marco Silva? Look, are we not going to be here in 18 months' time doing this all over again? I don't know. Maybe that's just the life we choose, right? Or maybe it chose us. But yeah, the logic of the fans that are banging the Levy Out drum immediately now, it's like they couldn't wait. It's like they couldn't wait. And I think that they're making a misstep because, again, it comes across to me, and I think it will come across to people that are seeking logic. Again, that's all I ever look for is consistent logic. I don't care where you land, but show me how you get there. It's like a maths exam. If you get the right answer, you get 1 point. You show me you're working out, you get 3, right? I want to know how you get to where you get. I don't care where you land, but just show me how you get there. And if it makes sense, I'll support it. And for me, I think that the change for Tottenham guys are crowing too soon. It's like they couldn't wait, and I think it's silly. I think they were taking credit for the Donna Cullen thing, which I think... Well, first and foremost, if it was a retirement, then I think they're taking credit. Actually, I'll say this out loud. I'm thinking out loud here. I've got to be consistent, and actually, this is fair. If it was just a retirement, then them taking credit for it was laughable. If it wasn't about a retirement, if it was a forced hand, if it's part of a shake-up that has been orchestrated, organised from Vivian Lewis because she's frustrated with whatever is happening at the top, then again, that's not down to change for Tottenham. But if what's happening at the top has been in any way accentuated, amplified or accelerated or expedited because Daniel Levy and the board are feeling the effects for the first time ever of 2,500 people and walking down the street and doing a sit-in, then I think that there is some credit to it. And there's certainly some momentum and there's certainly some value. And I've always said that. Like, I don't think it has any direct relationship with an owner lowering the price of what they're asking for to leave a sticky situation because they just can't take the hate anymore. There's no examples of that in the Premier League in history. Indirectly, though, it has its value for sure. I think we wouldn't have signed that extra player in January, Matisse Tell, if it hadn't been for the protests. And I think that when you look around other clubs, there certainly has been some direct or indirect benefits to protests. So I very much support them. It's just I feel like sometimes if you show your cards, if you show your hand and your agenda is clear, then I think you lose the credit and the respect and the credibility of the people in the middle who would otherwise join you if you were reasonable, logical and welcoming and understanding of the kind of complexity of the situation, right? You could, like, if you say, like, we understand that the competition in football that we have to face to win trophies is significant, it's difficult, and yada yada yada. But at the same time, we feel like this 25 years, it's too long. It's time for fresh eyes, all that sort of thing. If you come at it more balanced, then I think you can win the hearts and minds of the moderate. But if you are waiting for your next chance to bang the drum and you're crowing too soon, and you're immediately like, you're handing accountability to things that are not known and unclear, and also that defies logic to people because that's your end goal, and you're just fitting the story to get people there. I think it's a backfiring tactic, and I think they may have gone too soon again. We shall see. But like I say, I'll always be there. I'll always support them. I just wish there was a bit more delicacy with the tactics that are on display. You know, it's not criticism. It's just an observation from my perspective, and it's just an opinion as well. What do I know? Right. Anyway, chaos at Tottenham. I'm going to be doing a transfer video after this. Live streams to come. Busy day. See you later. Take care. Bye bye.